Okay, great. So, good morning, good evening. This is Richard Bode, and welcome to the April 13th Davis Electric Vehicle Association. Just a little thing for everyone to remember. We're going to record this meeting, so Chris, make sure the recording is on. If you've done that yet.
It is.
Great. Let's see. See if I can get the slides in there. There we go. All right, that was my intro slide. Okay. So just a little reminder for everyone too that please keep your video on, but your microphone's on mute, unless you want to ask a question. That way you don't get any crosstalk between the speakers that are going on. Feel free to use the chat at the bottom, especially if you're on there, to kind of introduce what EVs you have or what EVs you might be interested in. And I think pretty much we can get going. So today we have a fairly good agenda going for us today. And so I'm going to go through the list. I think most of you got the notice of it, but we're going to talk a little bit about a trip across America with a Tesla Model Y and the superchargers, organizing some community electric vehicle shows. That'll be interesting. And then we're going to get a nice talk on a web pages by Valley Clean Energy on roadmap to EV savings. And Pikes Peak, Jim Wilson actually couldn't make tonight's meeting, so I'm going to do a little intro on it, and then I'll tell you more about that when we get to the end. Just a little, on the hot topics, just a little quick news I wanted to share is that we're thinking about maybe doing a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting in June. And over the next week or so, Chris and I and the DEVA group will put together a little survey we'd like to put out and see how much support there is for that. How many people really want to move to in-person, whether they feel comfortable with it, and how many still would want to continue on with Zoom or do a hybrid. So expect to see that little survey come out. And in addition, that, something what else I had on there. Oh, one big thing is volunteers to helping out with DEVA. So we've had a couple of members move out of town recently, and we've lost one of our computer support people, Sandra Hall, who was a great help to us. So we are also going to send out a little news about what kind of duties we could, and what kind of roles that we might have with DEVA. We'd certainly like some people out there to volunteer with us, so we could get a little more help and to help us with agenda items, what they'd like to see presented, and maybe do some calling as well. So we'll put that out in some email over the next week. So with that, let me move on, because our next speakers, Julie Haney and Bill Dakin, are up first, and they're going to tell us about their trip across the USA in their Model Y. So Julie is a Cool Davis board member, local architect involved with energy efficient design. And Bill Dakin is a Valley Climate Action Center board member. And they both took the trip together because they're married. And so that's when we can find out if your marriage is strong. Go on a cross-country trip in an automobile. And so with that, I'm gonna unshare, and Julie, I'm gonna let you take over, or Bill.
Okay, hi, thank you guys for joining us. I'm gonna load up our slide.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so we took a cross-country trip in our Tesla. We called it the 21st Century Wagon Trail along the Supercharger Highway. Next slide. Bill. Here's the outline of our talk. We are going to discuss the vehicle selection, and our thoughts on how we thought it was possible to do a cross-country trip in an electric vehicle, trip planning, logistics, charging experience, details, conclusions, and then questions. So please hold your questions until the end, and we'll take care of them at that time. When we selected the car, there were a few criteria that were critical. And we went into this not wanting just a Tesla. We were open to anything. So, but we liked the idea of all-wheel drive, ability to drive in the snow, sufficient range and charging infrastructure to handle long road trips. And then Bill plays stand-up bass, so it had to fit the bass. One thing, the Model Y fit all that, and the advantages were the long range that it had at that time, 320-mile range. This charging structure was amazing throughout the country, and the navigation system that's on board the car made it really easy to plan trips. It had dog mode capabilities because we have a little dog that travels with us. There were lots of storage, and we're surprised to find the acceleration and power was really amazing. The disadvantages we found were it was really expensive. We've never owned a car that expensive. And it also had a stigma of like a fancy car, and we weren't really used to that and felt kind of awkward. Bill?
So when we had planned a trip to visit our friend who was celebrating her 60th birthday in Maine. We decided we didn't want to fly because of COVID, and we're planning on driving across the country. We thought about taking our pickup truck, our Toyota pickup truck, and camping in it. But once we got the Tesla, then we started thinking, well, maybe it would be better if it was possible to drive this car across the country than try to take a truck that was
20 years old.
22 years old. So we planned this trip for 5 weeks, round trip, total of 8,400 miles. What we did is we kind of went online at first to use the online Tesla app to identify whether, which route we would go to and identify where that charging infrastructure existed and how far we could get, kind of trying to drive 8 to 12 hours per day across the country, and then planning where we could stay. Other considerations included, we were going to be visiting with friends and family throughout the country, and we had to consider, this was starting mid-August or early August of last year, so we had to consider COVID-19 restrictions. So we were looking at lodging that was meeting those requirements for the practices. We were planning to do all of our eating either outdoors or bring our own food. So we had to plan to bring food with us, and we had to find, because we're bringing our dog, we had to have dog-friendly accommodations. We also looked at doing some camping along the way, which we'll talk about in a bit. We had to pack for both hot and cold weather. For camping, we needed a cooler for all the food we needed, dry food for meals on the road, and there was a lot to kind of consider when it came to organization. And this is the kind of the route we ended up taking, which you can see.
The
blue is the route east. So we kind of headed west through Utah into Wyoming, and then dropped down to visit a friend in Colorado, and then across the Midwest of the state and dropped into North Carolina before heading up to Maine and then heading home.
With the purple lines heading home.
On the northern route. And those little red dots kind of indicate where all the charging stops are along those routes.
So packing was super critical because it's a small car and we were planning to do a lot of eating on our own, and camping and hiking and sleeping bags. And we even were obsessed enough to buy a little air purifier for the hotel rooms so that we could clean it out for the COVID stuff before we entered. And then we had Tucker, our dog. Food, we found on the upper left or upper right, there's how we organized it with like Tupperware boxes, which was really great because things come undone real fast, and that was critical. And then we had like in the cooler, that blue box inside the cooler there, that held the ice and allowed it so our food wouldn't get soaked and disgusting. Then there's a little sign on the lower left. That was to, when we left Tucker in the car, you could see him in there. We didn't want people breaking the window and, you know, being the dog hero. So we made little signs that say that the Tesla had the cool mode on for the dog.
When you use dog mode, the
Yeah.
screen pops up that, you know, with a little wagging dog that says my owner
Don't
will be back
worry.
soon. But
Yeah.
we also heard that some people don't necessarily see that screen when it's sunny out, and so we made these little signs on the side windows to make it easier.
Yeah. And then there's us camping, and we realized that camping was a lot of work for a road trip like that. You need more than one day to really justify it. Like, we set up camp at night and took it down in the morning. It was a lot of schlepping. So we're going to rule that out next time.
Unless we do extended
Yeah.
trips like. So the charging experience I wanted to talk about a little bit more. In addition to that app that Tesla has, the onboard mapping was really, really useful. It navigates to all the charging stations. The example on the right shows like if we were leaving from our house and going to Wendover, Utah, which was one of the first stops we stayed at, and it would tell you where all these little red things tell you where the charging stations are, how many available chargers there are at that time. And then it also says, and this is what we kind of found out was true, is it's like basically says, okay, you drive until you get to Reno and then you charge for 25 minutes, drive to your next stop and drive for 20 minutes and charge for 20 minutes. What we found is that there was about 2 to 3 hours driving time between charges and anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes charging at each place, which turned out to be very convenient for our bathroom breaks, eating our meals out of the back of the car, walking the dog, exploring if there was good places to explore. It added about, when we were doing the long, full, 12-hour days across the country and trying to make miles, it added 2 hours of charging a day per day of driving. But we didn't have any wait times the entire time we were drove across and back. The one minor detour is when we were in Tennessee. It took us off the highway about 20 minutes to Pigeon Forge, which happened to be where Dollywood was, which was kind of an interesting, kind of like the adult version of Disneyland. It was kind of a little bizarre. But one thing it did is it mostly stuck us to interstates. We did do some driving up and sightseeing in some areas, but when we were driving across the country, we stuck to the major interstates mostly.
Yeah, so charging experience. So while we were charging, the locations were around shopping malls, hotel parking lots. Sometimes there were grocery store chains, especially in the Midwest. A couple of times there were fueling stations or rest stops. The charging stations weren't really that busy. And one thing that was really a problem was there were no restrooms, windshield cleaning facilities, trash cans, or that kind of thing to, get all those bugs off and all the junk food wrappers out of your car. And most of the food options had food options within walking distance. where we could use a restroom, so it wasn't totally out in the prairie with nothing available. What's this? Huge opportunities as EV charging expands. Oh yeah, we were like sitting there thinking, wow, could you imagine a food truck with really cool food and dog walking paths, and so there could be a really good infrastructure
Business
amenity.
opportunities for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But some of the examples of our charging breaks were included making our lunch out of the back of the Tesla. And then the bottom right picture here actually shows where we came up with creative ways to get some exercise while being the passenger.
Yeah. And the upper one shows what it's like, the car's like
when it's in charge.
Yeah. Okay.
So then getting into the details and kind of what we found and what we experienced in our trip across is that the average cost to charge varied by location and state, but it averaged about 31 cents a kilowatt hour. It was as low as 12 cents in Indiana and Wyoming. And then surprisingly, it was the highest we found in some places in Nevada. California is right up there, around 34, 36 cents. So it was that as well. Along the way, I was taking pictures of what the gas prices were as we went across, so I could then calculate, okay, well, based upon where we were stopping, what would we have to pay for gas if we were driving a gas vehicle? And what I found is that, again, as you would expect, the most expensive gas is in California. And this again is from August, September of last year. So it was $4.50 a gallon back then. $2.78 was the cheapest we saw in Nebraska. Based upon the our overall trip, our average fuel efficiency was 243 watt hours per mile, which maybe EV owners kind of understand that, but it's kind of hard to translate that to gas vehicles. So based upon what the EPA uses is 33.7 kilowatt hours of electricity per gallon of gasoline, we were basically calculated that our average was 137 miles per gallon equivalent for our trip based upon our charging.
He's such a good geek, isn't he? I love it.
So the chart here on the right shows what we paid in total for our trip across the country, which was $750 for supercharging costs. If we were driving a compact vehicle at 35 miles per gallon, we would be spending almost $1,000. So we saved $233 compared to a compact car. Compared to our Toyota Tacoma, which gets 18, which is the other vehicle we were considering, we were saved quite a bit of money compared to that. And then if we were going to take, let's say, a Sprinter van and camp across the country, the savings would be even higher. And additional savings is that we had no oil changes across the trip. And if we had tried this trip at this time, as we know, the fuel costs are much higher, so our savings would even be more. The environmental benefits, again, are quite substantial. What I did to estimate that was took what the carbon emissions are for gasoline at 18.95 pounds per CO2 per gallon, and then calculated that to how much pounds of CO2 per mile based upon each vehicle, and then compared it to the pounds of CO2 for an EV. And what I used for the EV is I used the average basically fuel mix, electricity fuel mix by state. Obviously, this will also change by time of day and when you charge. I didn't have that kind of detailed information for our trip, so I used this information. But as you can see on the table on the right, the savings generally tend to be much higher for the fuel mix. Let's say if we say in California it's 0.13 that's pounds per mile, not kilowatt hours. That's a mistake in the table. But so that's 0.13 compared to what it would be for our truck of 1.05 or 0.54 for a compact car. What I found was interesting is that some states like Wyoming, if you're driving a very compact vehicle, an electric vehicle may not give you that much environmental benefit because currently the Wyoming's grid is pretty dirty, but the benefits will improve as our US electric grid greens. And what we found is that the benefits were that we basically ended up consuming 26% greenhouse gas. That was our impact, was 26% of if we had driven the Tacoma truck at 18 miles per gallon, and 50% of what we would be if we were driving a compact car. Next slide. Once I find the mouse here.
That's pretty cheery, huh? Okay, so in conclusion, long distance travel is completely possible, especially now. I think things are getting more better, longer range vehicles and more opportunities to charge. It's easier than expected. Limited capacities in rural areas, blue highways. That was one thing we noticed. Like, we'd like to go through Highway 50 down Nevada, which is really interesting, but there's no chargers there. Yeah. And then not all vehicles, have the Tesla infrastructure access, which I think something that we'll see in the future. We also found that 5 weeks was way too short. We were racing through places we would have liked to have seen more of. So maybe 2 or 3 months, once you're retired, that's more possible. Looking into lodging the EV charging stations, we saw a couple that had them.
And we used it once,
yeah,
but we didn't even think about that.
We didn't even think that that was a possibility. So I think, and like this weekend, we went to Mendocino, and they had just installed a charger at the hotel we stayed at. So I think that's coming on. Camping, definitely stay more than one night at a location if you're planning to do that. Amenities at charging locations definitely can be better. And then as the range improves, charging infrastructure and stations need to match the increased demand, which we're going to probably be seeing.
We hope.
We hope.
That we are anticipating that we see that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a quick overview of our.
And it was really fun. I really enjoyed it and felt like, the 21st century wagon tippering comparison, like we weren't sure if we were going to make it. And my brother-in-law didn't think we were going to make it, but it was great. It was really, really fun. So questions, anybody?
So Julie, I just got to ask, when you said you didn't think we were going to make it, you meant make the trip or actually make it on the road, like you're going to die somewhere on the road?
No, we wouldn't die. It wouldn't be like the carnage they had on the wagon trail,
Yeah. Okay.
We just, I don't think we didn't think we were going to make it. We just didn't. I think we anticipated more glitches.
Yeah.
And we really had none. It was so smooth.
Knock on wood.
It was, we never had to wait.
We never ran out of energy.
It just worked.
And we didn't have a flat tire, which in the EVs, they don't always have a spare tire. So that was really good. That's right.
But our brother-in-law in North Carolina was telling Julie's sister, he's like going, they're not going to make it.
So Richard, we have some questions that are in the chat, so you can call on those people. And I think Peter has his hand up.
Okay, Peter, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I was just going to say that, I'm not by any means denigrating your choice of EV, but I was looking on PlugShare, and it looks like any vehicle with about 200 miles of range, you can get from Sacramento to Maine. Okay, it may take longer, but you will make it because there's plenty of non-Tesla chargers out these days.
Yeah, that's a good point.
it's changing rapidly. When we looked in March of last year, which is when we made our decision, it certainly seemed like this was the easiest choice.
Yeah, that could be true because I'm looking right now. So
Yeah, a
you
lot
got
has
real
changed.
time numbers.
Yeah, a lot has changed since we made our
Yeah.
decision to buy the car last
I mean,
March,
the Bolt looked pretty good. That was our second choice.
but the Bolt didn't fit my base.
No.
The Bolt is awful small, yeah.
Could you tell us how far down your charger went?
Oh,
down
we
to
got
1 or
down to
2%?
1% one
We got
time.
it down to 1%
Ah.
as we entered Green River. And we ended up at a charging station, which had 2 of the chargers that were down, but there still was one available. And as it happened, there was a museum there, John Wesley Powell Museum. So that was as low as
Yeah.
low as we got. I've heard of other people who have taken it below that because they kind of have, you know, some
5% margin.
they have a 5% margin built in, but we didn't.
Thanks.
It was, what we found is that it was, when it was calculating where our next charging station was, it was pretty accurate as to, you know, what charge we were going to get to.
We would always charge to like 80%,
Yeah, we
just to
didn't.
help our battery.
Oh.
Apparently that's good for batteries.
Plus, it was also required, you know, we would go for anywhere from 20% to 80% typically, because that ended up being the quickest charging. So we did more stops, but less time overall.
Mhm.
You got a question from John Baldoff saying, how accurate was your charge remaining estimates? The actual recharging needs.
It was pretty good, actually. You know, it obviously how, depending on who was driving, it may, somebody may bring it down a little bit faster.
What are you saying?
But you know, certainly it seemed to work pretty well. I mean, where it really, some of the mountain areas, maybe it didn't know that information, but and we drove through a lot of mountains to get to Green River, which is why I think it was estimating us to get to 7%, and we were down to 1% by the time we got there because of the hills.
What was your average speed?
Well, it depended. Through a lot of the country, that was
I'd say 80, 85.
70 to 80.
Oh, really? Okay.
See, it depends on the driver. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty quick. It wasn't like, we weren't minding the 65.
Yeah.
So Jack Jonas asked about what your biggest challenge on the road trip was.
Biggest challenge. COVID.
Piriformis syndrome.
Well, yeah, but it was a challenge just dealing with COVID, you know,
Yeah.
finding food options. But, you know, I felt like we planned pretty well for it because we had a cooler and bags of food. We could, a lot of times we would just make salads and just eat our salads,
Yeah.
sometimes in the hotel rooms if it was night, or sometimes it was when we were charging. Other challenges.
I think keeping organization in the car was a challenge because when things start getting out of control, you start getting more crabby with each other, you know, because you can't find something. So that was really good. I think we had it down. That really helped.
Right.
So
Um, Oh, good.
it looks like Susan had a question about what would you have done if you had lost the charge? Do you just call AAA? What do you do if?
Yeah,
If
well, actually you call the Tesla
Tesla.
road service and they'll bring in a tow truck driver similar to a AAA or something like
Yeah.
that. I heard that, we did not experience that, but I heard that this winter when there was the big storms and the roads were closed up in Tahoe, a friend of mine talked to a tow truck driver who said he was picking up a lot of Tesla drivers who were like stuck in traffic and weren't going anywhere. And of course it was blizzarding and cold. And so they had the heat on. And so people lost their charge and got stranded.
Well, and also charges don't work. It's different in the cold weather. The temperatures change the battery performance.
Yeah, we drove in the summer, so we didn't have that issue.
Right. Just one comment too about from Peter Macon in there. They're talking about, I actually liked all the data you had in there, but he was talking about maybe having cost per mile would be a nice metric.
Yeah, that's what I always do when I'm, talking about
Cost per
EVs
mile,
to
I
people.
have that data.
Yeah. I just take, the cost of a gallon of gas and I say, okay, if you're getting 25 miles per the gallon and it's $5 a gallon gas, okay, what is that? That's 25 cents a mile or something like that. And then my cost of electricity is 5 cents a mile. So, I'm getting, and if the car is getting 25 miles per gallon, now I'm getting 5 times that. I'm getting 125.
Yeah.
And the downside to that calculation is it varies with the price of gas, but it's really what I think most people are concerned about is, what does it cost to drive a mile in the car? And
Right.
not, just because gasoline has, so many kilowatt hours of energy per gallon, it doesn't matter. People don't care. They care about how much money's coming out of their pocket to drive
Yeah.
a certain distance.
So I don't know if you see the spreadsheet I have here, but this is the information for all the stops we had, but it was
Okay.
So it was, in Nevada, it was about 22 cents per mile. And then as we entered the Midwest, it was 16 cents a mile throughout most of the Midwest, and then went up a little bit when we ended up in New York to 18 cents per mile on the East Coast, that kind of stuff. And then back in California and back in the West, it was 21 cents a mile.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I did that with my first road trip to Salt Lake City. And then after that, it was like, okay, did it once, never again. Just plug it in and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. We'd always stop and get our little notebooks out and take all the information.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other thing we do every time we go to a charging stop. If both of us had little books where we'd enter in all the information on kind of where we were, what time it was, how long it took to charge, all this kind of stuff. What amenities were at each of the charging stations and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Well, I always think we could make a immediate conversion to EVs. If every car in America that gets sold had to have a meter right next to the speedometer that was like, here's what you're getting with your ICE car versus here's what you get with the average EV, so that, every gas driver would see the dollars clicking by every mile they go. Yeah.
So let's see, Shelley has asked, how fast did you travel most of the time?
Well, when we were driving across Interstate 70 or 80, we were driving, I think depending on the state, but between 70 and 80 miles an hour.
Sometimes we could get up to 90.
Well, but we weren't driving 90 on a regular basis unless when I was asleep and you were driving.
80 was a lot, I saw. A lot.
We'll edit that out when we post this too.
But that's the temptation in those little fast electric vehicles, huh?
Yeah, I know. Boy, they go fast.
So let's see, David asked, did you use the frunk for specific storage on your trip?
Yeah, so we stored our sleeping bags and tent and our beer cooler in the frunk.
Storage opportunities are pretty great in the Tesla.
Yeah, so we had a lot of room, and then we had some other camping stuff in the back trunk, but that was harder to access because that's where we had like our cooler and all of our other boxes.
I'm actually surprised to hear that you were actually driving as fast as you were and got the watt hours per mile average that you got, because your average of 243 or whatever, that's right around my average in a single motor long range Model 3. And that's with the weight and the aerodynamics of the Model Y, people are averaging closer to 300. So you must have had some slow parts of that drive too.
Well,
yeah,
we did. When we drove through the mountains and that kind of stuff. And we also and we also spent time, not all of it was freeway driving. We spent a
Yeah.
bunch of time in Kentucky and North Carolina visiting people, and then
Take the scenic route.
we took the scenic route a couple times too.
And then one thing I'm wondering is, did you experience, I couldn't see it, I wasn't sure in your spreadsheet, but did you experience any of the superchargers in states where they charge you by time as opposed to
Yeah,
kilowatt hour? And how did the cost compare when it was done by time?
there's a couple places. Pigeon Forge, I think, was one where it was cost per minute, and then where was it now?
Probably be right there. Okay.
Charging, no, that's charging minutes, charging time, cost per minute. Oh, here in
Hmm.
Nebraska, there are a couple states that, because of utility regulations, they're not allowed to charge by kilowatt hour, because it's basically would mean that they're like being a utility, and they can't do that. So they did charge per minute. The cost to charge was significantly cheaper. I mean, you can see the example here. It's like here in Nebraska, we were charged per minute, and to charge, similar charge in number of miles, we are spending $5, $3.45, $5.06, where we're spending over $10, $10 to $15 when we are being charged per kilowatt hour. So it was cheaper that way.
Wow. And then one other thing I wanted to ask, did you, which people might not know about the Tesla, but did you ever experience where it told you you had to keep your speed below a certain speed to make it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one time it was telling us to, when we were going to
Keep it
Green
under
River,
70.
Utah, told us to keep it under 70. And we did see another car late at night. There was a Tesla that was driving really slow, and we anticipated that's probably what they were doing. But most of the time, we didn't get below 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, here you can see the charge level for each of the stops and where we were. Oh, it was at 2%. We were at not 1%, 2% at Green River. But most of the time, we were above 10%. And so we didn't get that warning when we were above 10%.
Julie, Bill, I just want to remind you, I think you have another meeting to go to.
Yeah,
I didn't
So
want to.
wrap it up. I do
Yeah.
want to say one thing. This weekend when we were in Bodega Bay, we saw a Tesla with a small Airstream
In a
trailer
campground.
in a campground, and I interviewed the guy to see what his story was. He said that pulling the Airstream was no problem, going up hills and what have you, but he had to charge twice as much.
Well, and then the other issue with pulling a trailer is, as I'm sure you noticed, very few of the supercharger stations actually have pull through.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
That's a good
That's
point.
a really good
Or
point.
charge it at a lot of them.
And he did say he had to stop and take the trailer off and go to the charging station and come back.
There's a big movement to try and get more, either pull in forward ones or pull through ones.
Uh-huh.
One thing we did see when we were in Maine, actually at the LL Bean
Oh, yeah.
store, was, we had heard about this, I've forgotten what the term is called, but where, internal combustion vehicles park in the charging stations
Just to piss them off.
just to annoy people. And we did see a Jeep pulled into the Tesla supercharger station there, or one of the slots. But then it turned out it was not an electric, but a
hybrid.
plug-in hybrid, and he had an adapter
And he was charging.
and he was charging with it. So I haven't seen it since then, but I would imagine that there may be an opportunity for more vehicles to charge at Tesla supercharger stations. There may be limitations on what they can handle as far as voltage or that kind of stuff, but that vehicle was able to top off while they were shopping at LOB.
Why don't we get you one last question?
Okay.
Move along. From Shelley, who said, do all states have Tesla charging stations?
Yes,
Pretty much.
Okay,
they all states have Tesla charging
Oh,
stations.
yeah.
It
I
kind of
believe
depended
Alaska
on,
just- I believe Alaska just got their first in the last month.
oh, really? So, yeah, well, we didn't travel to Alaska, but everywhere we went, there were charging stations. They're usually organized through an arrangement through, either a hotel or in some places like in the South, we saw a gas station chain that was combining their EV charging, not just Tesla, but other EV charging capabilities along with gas fueling and food. So
Yeah.
we're starting to see maybe some people say, oh, well, this is a good business model to plan for the future. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, you guys, and it was a pleasure
you.
sharing.
yeah, thanks for taking your time, and thanks for all the data,
Yeah.
information. That was great.
Yeah. Bill's got to go, but I'll stay.
Okay,
if anybody has any questions, they can email us too. So.
yeah, and if we get time at the end too, we can always do some questions at the end for. Okay. Let me. Okay.
Shelley, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Did Shelley have a question?
I think maybe her hand is just still up from previous questions, so.
Okay. Oh, I just wiped down my screen share. Sorry. No, love that. Not quite. It's the screen again. Okay. Okay. Our next one item was, and actually I've got, well, anyway, let me go through. I mentioned at the beginning of this too, I talked about asking some groups if they could organize some community shows, and that's either local, local groups, local areas, local communities, and even faith-based groups. And I'm glad to say that we've got a couple that are coming up here in the next couple of months. So actually, a week from Sunday, on April 24th, which is Earth Day Sunday, right? The United Methodist Church is going to have an EV fair. And so they're encouraging the public to come out to this fair. They've actually done some advertising. I was going to put the flyer up here, but it was a pretty big flyer. But I will actually, in the chat later on, I'll send you to where you can get a copy of that flyer when listed. And it's on 1620 Anderson Road. So they've got two parking lots there, one on the north side of the church and one on the south side. The north side, they're going to block off and they're going to have, we hope to get about at least 10 EVs out there and hopefully some e-bikes as well. And this is going to be a great kind of cooperation where the United Methodist Church has done a lot of the communication, at least with their congregation itself. And they've also reached out to do some public communication on this. The Cool Davis newsletter had an article about the EV fair in the flyer. And so this is gonna, hopefully the DEVA group itself, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna provide them with brochures and pop-up tents where we're gonna have some of our experts sit down and talk. We'll have some EV experts out there. And in fact, everyone who brings an EV out there, it's hard not to, everyone loves to talk about their EV experience. So I think we'll have a good time for all. And we'll have a link to some of the, how to find rebates and incentives as well. So I invite you all, if you got an opportunity to go out there. If you're interested in actually showing your EV, please send a note to DEVA@cooldavis.org. And if you get that, then I will forward it out to Methodist group, so they know how many cars we're getting. And I'll do some reaching out to some of you as well. Now, we've got Susan Paget's on the line too. Do you guys have any questions about the fair itself?
I could just add that it's 11 to 1.
Oh, thanks. I forgot to put that on there, 11 to 1. Thank you. Yeah, so it's right. So the plan right now is the EVs that are coming in will probably come in about somewhere about 10:15, 10:30, and we'll get those in the little north parking lot and then kind of block that off. And then when the service ends at 11 o'clock, then that little courtyard they have there will lead right out to that where the EV fair is. So I look forward to that. It's going to be and a great appropriate day too, right together with Earth Day. Okay. Questions? The other one is June 4th, Rancho Yolo is right now. They've talked to us about helping them with their EV extravaganza. And so what they're going to try and do is do it kind of a community, their little Rancho Yolo community itself. And they've done quite a bit of talking. So I've talked to Elizabeth Lansky and sorry, Elizabeth. And she's kind of heading this EV show. And the plan, they're going to do a little something different. And I think for their group is we're going to do a little 10 a.m. to 11:30 EV 101 discussion over Zoom. So that way we can kind of bring everybody on board, you know, about EVs, charging, major issues with it, incentives, talk about that. But then let everybody shut it down and then have a little lunch break. And then at 1 p.m. have the EV show up there at Rancho Yolo. So Elizabeth isn't really advertising this to the general public because they have kind of a limited area for putting EVs in and for parking out there. But it's also to get that the people who live in Rancho Yolo, kind of a diverse crowd, but also everyone's very interested in EVs as well. So Elizabeth, did you have any comments you wanted to make about the show?
Well, everyone I talked to about it here is very excited. I think we will have a nice turnout. We do have quite a spectrum of income levels and interest level as well. But this is something very different. We've never had anything quite like this at Rancho Yolo, so we're looking forward to it. We have 25 parking spaces in our clubhouse parking lot, not counting the 2 handicap spaces. So you all need to figure out how many vehicles that would accommodate.
Okay.
But it would be nice if we had like a range of vehicles, a nice variety, but also a range of affordability.
Right. And then another thing we talked about too is the same as what's going on in the United Methodist Church. We bring up some pop-ups and tents and tables and brochures and information, and have some EV experts out there as well. And I think anyone who owns an EV actually becomes an EV expert after a short amount of time.
So Richard, you're looking for volunteers who want to come out for either event, right? To show their cars.
That's right.
And I know that Elizabeth was particularly interested in the array of cars having some used vehicles. That is, if you purchased your vehicle used, that is a different price profile than other electric vehicles. And so she's interested in having a variety on site.
Yes,
Good.
and I don't think the e-bikes, we've had e-bikes here before, and we had some people fall off of them and whatever. So I'm not anxious to go that route for this particular event.
Okay.
Well, Richard, do you want to know who's interested? I mean, I would be interested in showing up there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Would you just send us a note at diva@cooldavis.org?
.org, okay.
Yeah. And anyone else is interested, just send it there, and then one of us will contact you soon. And then we'll yeah, keep a record that we can share with Elizabeth.
Okay.
That'd be great.
So one of the things that we're interested in hearing from you about, and also for you when you go away from this meeting to keep thinking about, is are there other organizations in the community that would like to sponsor a local like neighborhood show like this, either in the mode of Rancho YOLO that's more kind of contained and not a public event, but just for the group, or like the Methodist Church, where they're interested in having the general public come. And so those are kind of two options right now. Plus DEVA in the past has also brought our meetings like this on the road, and had our in-person meetings at a location in the community. And that's an option as well. And when we did that at the cannery, I guess that was the December before COVID started, we had those meetings have included food and kind of more of a general time for gathering and people meeting together. But we also included an EV show and tell with those in-person meetings. And so if you belong to a community organization that you think might be interested in sponsoring an event like this, we'd love to work with you. And Richard, I don't know if you have any other things you want to share with
On that.
Mhm.
No, I think that's all I've got right now. But I kind of reiterate what kind of Chris said too, is the nice part about these shows, even if they're kind of like a little smaller, is a great opportunity for, especially people who haven't had a good background on electric vehicles, to get to chat with owners, especially asking like, well, what did you do when you first got an EV? What are the challenges? I think the biggest challenge for people who don't have EVs is charging, the fear of charging. Where are they going to find it? Though I think that's a fear that after a couple of months you figure out pretty quickly, what are your go-to places. So I kind of what Chris brought up too about taking DEVA meetings to some of these communities. It's I like that idea as well. The little community things are better because you can actually bring more cars to take a look at. Usually our DEVA meetings we usually used to have one car that would come in, and nobody could, sometimes two cars, and bring in and huddle around them. But I think this is also, with the communities, it tends to get more people who are EV curious out to some of these shows. So anyway, I think that's all I've got. Did you want to add anything, Chris?
Oh, I think that's it.
Great.
Like we said, we'd love to hear from you. Just diva@cooldavis.org. Let us know. And then if you're interested in volunteering for any of these events, as well as we're going to be resuming the farmers market one-car pop-ups starting in June. So let Richard know if you're interested in showing your car at farmers market.
Yeah. And you can send it that same diva@cooldavis.org. I get a copy, a bunch of us, and I'll respond back. Great.
Great.
Okay. So we'll move along. So next, we've got Sarah Huffman from Valley Clean Energy, and she's going to talk about her roadmap to EV savings. And VCE's done quite a bit of work on EV incentives and rebates. And I'm going to get out here, and I'm going to let Sarah share her screen with us. Sarah's going to share her screen with us. I don't think I'm out of it yet, am I? There we go. Okay, now I'm out.
Okay, so
Hey.
yeah, thank you. So I'll be giving you the live user demonstration. So we'll just be going through Valley Clean Energy's website, and any of the tools that I show tonight will be things that you can just go home and use right away. So that's the hope.
Right.
And I'll
This
drop.
will be dynamic then. Dynamic presentation of your website.
yes, it'll be our website, and I'll drop into the chat here. I hope it works. A few links that. Okay, they might not have popped up as links. I do apologize. But all right, I will resend that at the end of the presentation, but these should be, easy links, so you can just click on it and head straight to our website location. So let's share the screen. All right, so Valley Clean Energy. So who we are is, we community choice energy, and we're really responsible for just providing you the generation portion of your electricity bill. And so we source the energy. We try to do it from a lot of local renewable sources. Solar is a big one, wind, and we provide you that energy. And then of course, PG&E is the one who's responsible for the wires and delivering power, as well as handling the billing. And what, our big mission is just trying to make the electricity sector greener and more sustainable. And that's something that we're always pushing and advocating for. And that kind of goes directly into the transportation sector and how we want to sort of boost or uplift EV adoption in our areas, just because it reduces those emissions and makes our community much greener and more sustainable and healthier overall. So what we've developed is a few tools that will kind of boost EV adoption and hopefully make it a more financially feasible option for more people. And what you're looking at is what we call the EV rebates. And how I got to that was in our programs tab, rebates and incentives, and down to EV rebates. And it lies out the rebates and incentives that are available currently. And then a couple of questions that you sort of need to ask yourself in order, like, do you qualify or do you meet these certain criteria? And each rebate is different, makes it super complicated. They all have different qualifications, different models, different dealerships, but we're trying to make that as easy to understand as possible. All right, so a big one, income qualifications. So if you qualify as low income, so you sort of meet these thresholds here, you do open up yourself to more rebate options, as well as usually larger rebates. They're seem to be about twice the size. If you are someone of a medium or higher income, there's still options and rebates and incentives. There just won't be as as large in size and not as many options. All right, so if you do qualify, step one, you have this apply before you purchase or lease your vehicle. And so there's two options here. We call it the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program grant and the Drive Clean Assistance Program. And these two, you're actually going to apply for. So you apply for before you purchase your vehicle. You go through the application process, and then a staff member will actually work with you to try to figure out which vehicle works best for you. Like if you're someone who's going to be commuting every day to work, you need that reliable vehicle that can cover that distance. Or maybe if you're only going to go out for groceries a few times a week, you can go with something that has more limited range. And then when you go to purchase that vehicle in the dealership, you get qualified to receive this grant, and the dealership will actually apply that money straight to your purchase. So it's instant and you will see that reduction in price. Number two is there's the Clean Vehicle Rewards, and that's an incentive that you're going to get right at the dealership. So when you're looking to see if you can qualify for Clean Fuel Rewards, it's only certain dealerships that will provide this to you, and it's based on the battery capacity of the vehicle you're looking at. And so if you have if that smaller range, usually it's about $450 that you'll get off your vehicle. If you have a car or you're looking to purchase a vehicle that has a longer range, it's going to be up to about $750. And I should have stated that the California Clean CVAP and DCAP, usually their incentives are from about $1,000 to $5,000, depending on whether or not you buy a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or a battery electric vehicle. our third rebate option. So this is what you apply for within 90 days after purchasing your electric vehicle. So if you've already purchased one, it's when that 90-day window, you can still apply. It's for those of, either low or medium to high income. Something to know here is there is a high earners cap. So if you, I believe it's like if you're a single filer in your taxes, if you're over $120,000 income annually, then you're over the threshold. As well as if you try to buy a luxury vehicle, you won't be qualified for this rebate either. And I think they have a luxury vehicle cap set at $45,000. And so that high earners cap and that luxury vehicle cap is something they're always reassessing. So it is updated every 6 months. So, if you're hoping, or if you're planning on getting this in your sort of financial breakdown of whether an EV is for you, definitely check to see if those requirements are changing or going to change. All right, and oh yes, and this one, so within the 90 days, it's not with a specific dealership, but it is specific models of cars. So this would be where you go and visit their website and you see which models are available to receive this rebate. And the one not to forget about, because taxes are due on the 15th, is the federal tax credit. So, the specific model that you're looking at, the information should be available if a federal tax credit is for it. And that is something you can find on our website. So I'll be showing that to you shortly. But yes, so basically the amount of money that you get is kind of dependent on how many models that they've sold of that specific brand of car. And so once they reach a threshold, this federal tax credit will no longer be available. I think Teslas, some of them may have hit that threshold already. So, something to keep in mind, but this can be a pretty great amount too, up to $7,500. And the last, so these are just bonuses, not really monetary, but it allows you to drive in the carpool lane. So the income based, if you qualify for low income, you can actually get this on a used vehicle. So something that was previously owned by somebody else. If you don't meet that threshold, you can get, this is only for new vehicles with a clean air vehicle decal, and allows you to cruise in the carpool lane without any guests in your car. So, all right, and so these are, of course, what I said are available currently. What is exciting news is that Valley Clean Energy is working on their own rebate program for customers in our local areas. If you're a Valley Clean Energy customer, we're going to do that in a phased approach. So we're trying to do kind of the simplest take on how we can give rebates as we sort of learn to navigate, taking in applications and working with customers. So if you qualify to receive funds from this Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, that's an eligibility criteria for us. You just have to show that you're a VCE customer, so you receive a portion of your electricity bill from us, and then you can receive a rebate. And so we're hoping our rebates are about from $2,000 to $4,000. And $4,000 is if you meet that low income threshold that aligns with the CVRP. And then $2,000 to $5,000, $2,000 to $2,500 for anyone above the low income, and that's just for hybrids will just be $500 lower, and then battery electric vehicles will be the full $2,500. So yeah, that's this roadmap, and I hope that was handy. And I will just pop over to two more tools real fast that I think will be exciting for people. All right, so we go to programs, electric vehicles, and we have, I should show you this, credits and rebates. So, and I do apologize, the way our web pages work right now, this information is a little disjointed, but we're hoping to get the EV roadmap on our main EV pages. It's just these are constantly updated. Well, that one is a bit of a stagnant sort of marketing piece that we haven't integrated in yet. So if you want more information on these rebates and incentives, they're going to be on this this portion of our website. Of course, you can have this application button right there. Check it out, learn more, and it gives you sort of a little bit of more information and a breakdown about each one of these rebates that we talked through, and it should give you in the same order that we went through to you on the roadmap. And savings calculator. So you saw this in the, by hand Excel sheet calculation of the same information that I'll be showing you in the previous presentation. But let's see, I can use a little bit of personal information here. So what this is going to do is just, show you what your monthly fuel cost is going to be like in comparison to the electric vehicle that you're looking for. So does anyone have, would like to provide sort of the input of the estimated miles you drive every day? We'll do this by hand for you, right on the spot.
Somebody speak up.
Well, you don't want my average miles per day because it's about 2. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my other car. It's a Dodge Journey.
Mm-hmm.
2009 Dodge Journey.
2009. Let's see if we got it here. Journey. Okay, Ford.
2L. Yep.
Okay.
And that one.
Estimated mile.
Let's see. This is daily, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were using this to commute. So about 30 miles a day. Yeah, back to Sacramento and back.
All right. And any particular electric vehicle you want to compare it to?
We'll do it with the Bolt because I'll tell you, that's what we substituted our Bolt for the Journey.
Ooh, estimated.
And same miles, 30. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, that's
so,
at 0. It says 0.
Oh, sorry. This is for you drive for the weekend. You drive.
Oh, for the weekend. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it says 7 days a week here. So I think that's every week.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So monthly fuel costs, $269. This is, of course, with the, current day, very expensive gasoline. And then, yeah, so monthly fuel costs for EV, looking at the BEV or the Bolt, would be $39 a month here.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it's huge difference. And then the great thing is there's also this part down here. So it can really inform you of when you charge your vehicle, like those price shifts. So let's say you want to start charging on at peak periods, you can see how much that'll increase. Or if you have a time of use rate on peak, I believe that's from 4 to 9 p.m. So if you charge, during that most expensive time of the day, you can see how that will affect your monthly cost.
Right.
So great tool. Estimated charging time also comes with specific models that you're looking at. And let's say you want to shop around, you can go to view EV models. If it'll let you. Okay. And this will be constantly updated. So as soon as new models come out, these should be visible on this website as well. So explore electric vehicles. You can configure your vehicle. You can, choose to filter it by the MSRP, so price, or the range. So if you want shorter, longer to shorter, shorter to longer, depending on what you prefer and what you need from your car. Yeah, and yeah, it's federal tax credit that's available. We'll give you right here. So that kind of help you make your decision, as well as the battery capacity and the range, of course, too. So yes,
That's great. Where do you get, Sarah, where do you get your data for this too? Do you update it from like PlugShare or from the US government or what?
So I've been handling some of the rebates and incentives, but the electric vehicle models and savings calculator, those are all tools that are built by a third party. And especially with these EV models, a third party is actually going in and updating this automatically. Constantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. So it's not like you do it once a year or once every 6 months. They do it. They keep it up to date.
Exactly. And they have a charger finder as well. When you start trying to think about those road trips. This isn't something I have explored myself, but it is also being constantly updated by that third party, so it should be up to date. It's a great suite of tools, and I will hopefully get those links to you in a minute. And that is what I had to share today. So if you have any questions.
Can you explain You made a statement about some of those rebates and grants being available to Valley Clean Energy customers. What is the definition of a Valley Clean Energy customer? Are you?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So if you were to look at your energy bill or that you receive from PG&E, if you look at the generation portion of it, there should be Valley Clean Energy should be on a part of your bill. And if you're unsure of that or don't have a bill on hand, you can always call PG&E, or you can call our customer service line that we have available on our website as well. And somebody should be able to tell you whether or not you're a Valley Clean Energy customer.
Do you have any relationship with SMUD at all, or just PG&E?
No relationship for SMUD. So it is, well, actually, sorry, I do apologize. We work with SMUD and they help us handle our data, but our customers aren't necessarily SMUD customers. They're Valley Clean Energy. And so you have to be within Yolo County. And there was an automatic enrollment period that happened in 2018. So, the county chose to have a CCA, and then customers are automatically enrolled with the option of being able to opt out at any time and go back to just being a PG&E customer.
Great, thank you. That clarifies.
And Sierra, just to clarify again, it's only for the cities and counties that are participating in the county that are participating in Yolo County and VCE. So West Sacramento is not yet a member of VCE.
That's true. I believe West Sacramento is holding out for SMUD still. So yes, they are not participating in Valley Clean Energy.
When you say that Valley Clean Energy is working on having rebates, do you have any idea what the time frame on that would be?
Absolutely, and that's something I wanted to mention. So it is going to our board on May 12th, and I can actually navigate over to that. So on meetings and agendas, we post the links and when the next upcoming meeting is. So we have one on April 14th, but May 12th is when it's going to be approved by our board, or when we hope it's going to. And I would like to just encourage, if anybody is excited about rebates or wants to see these in our community, we're really hoping it sort of moves the needle and boosts EV adoption. Now that would be a meeting to attend. Our board is sometimes scared of electrification, just because their knowledge lies in different areas, and especially in business. So it's always good for the community to kind of show up and talk about what they'd like to see and support or against certain of our programs.
I had one other question about the CVRP, I believe it was called, the Clean Vehicle Project.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been leasing my Chevy Bolt, and my lease will be ending in a few months. And when they say that you can get a rebate by buying a leased vehicle, does that include people that are already leasing the vehicle they would buy?
I don't think so. I think if you would wanted to make that window with a CVRP, that was something you probably would have needed to do within 90 days after leasing your vehicle. I think after your lease agreement ends, it becomes, it would technically be considered used.
So, okay. So because I'm kind of not understanding, because it says buying a leased vehicle somewhere.
So Sierra,
buying new or leased. So I get confused.
So Sierra,
yeah,
in a lease situation, the owner is the leasing agency, and they take the lease off the cost of the car right there in the lease agreement. So the person who's leasing is never seeing that rebate directly. And it's only when you purchase the car directly yourself that you are receiving the rebate directly.
So if I were to go to the dealership to buy a previously leased car, I'm just seeing only applicable for new or leased EVs on one of the chains of how the rebates work.
Correct. So that would be only if if that previous leased car had not accessed its rebate already.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Otherwise, it seemed like it'd be double dipping. So, okay. But the Valley Clean Energy rebate, should that go through, and then I were to go buy the EV I've been leasing, would I be eligible for that?
Yeah, if you are eligible for the CVRP, you are eligible for the Valley Clean Energy rebate. So we are using
But-
this as a criteria.
So Sierra, I
so
think go ahead, Kathy.
Well, you might know more than me, Chris. I think what you said is I'm not eligible for the CVRP. Therefore, I would not be eligible for the Valley Clean Energy rebate because I was buying my leased vehicle. Does that sound correct?
So Sierra, I think the question is, if you already have a vehicle, are you eligible for this extra rebate, or is it only for purchasing or leasing new?
This is only for purchasing or leasing new, the CVRP.
So
Yes.
if you already have a
Okay.
vehicle, that you can't just go to VCE and get this additional rebate for the vehicle you already have.
So there is, yes. So, and there is maybe a tiny bit of a caveat. So like, if you had applied and received a CVRP rebate, then you could qualify for us, not depending on the time that went in between that. That's still something that we need to work out. But yeah, in your particular situation that you're describing, you would need to have received funds from the CVRP, because they're doing for us the tracking the paperwork, checking your income, making sure that you're going to keep the car for the next, I think, a certain allotted amount of time. It might be up to 2 years. So you're not just going to purchase something or resell it after receiving the rebate. So they're keeping track of all those elements. So that we necessarily don't have to put that on our staff or make that a requirement. And then it's a really easy application process for, somebody like yourself, a customer. But yeah, it does, it is going to limit the scope of people that could apply.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Peter and Shelley McFarland also have their hands in the air.
Yeah, so I actually don't have a question. I have a comment, and it's for Sierra. Well, maybe it's not your place to tell your board what to do, but your board should not be worried about electrification as long as they can procure energy contracts to supply that additional energy that electrification creates on the system. PG&E is responsible for the transmission network, the distribution network, and all the upgrades that go with it. So all they have to do is make sure that they've got enough energy to supply that additional load, and they're golden. So there's really not a heck of a lot for them to worry about with electrification.
I think you're right. It's just the media and the news and all the things that are out there that you could run into. So
Yeah, no, there's a lot of FUD. So
Shelley, you have a question. Susan, we'll get to you right after.
Thanks.
Shelley. Shelley, did you want to ask?
I think she maybe just has her hand up from previously.
Okay, Susan,
Unless
why
you
don't you go ahead?
Hi, I have a question about whether Valley Clean Energy or DEVA are concerned about the number and placement of chargers in the communities. I feel that the co-op should have a charger or 2 chargers. I feel that places that have, that I'm now at, what's this place called? Down where the barn is, the cannery. Would have 8 or 10 chargers, and they're missing. So the question is for Valley Clean Energy, are there funds, or can we ask for funds to get those up and going, or to entice people to do them? And the second thing that for me, I have a Bolt and I have a charger. Kind of understanding what the home chargers are, how they're rated or how you make a decent purchase is really important, because we're not all going across America, but we are all going to our communities where we shop or eat or whatever. And it's important. I don't think Davis has a very good supply personally of chargers, public chargers, and they all look terrible. Anyway.
So why don't we have Sarah maybe answer the first part of that? And then maybe Chris, would you like to talk about what we're doing with the city? Okay.
Yes, and then also I see a few other people on this Zoom, like Eugen and a few others who have some expertise in advocacy on getting charging installed in our region, and they may have some thoughts on this as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I know we had a grant with that we received specifically to install some charging infrastructure in some of the local cities. They're being really slow to sort of roll out. I think COVID really put a stop to some of those constructions and plans and getting together. That was really necessary to sort of get that infrastructure on the ground. So hopefully there's more coming down the line, but I definitely, that is a concern of ours, because of course with EV adoption, you need the infrastructure to charge it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of money coming from the state to CCAs, like what our organization is in general, because California recognizes that if they want a certain amount of EVs on the road by 2030 or 2035, forgot what our goal is, then we definitely need far more charging infrastructure. So a lot of money is coming towards that right now. So we're definitely hoping that our programs start revolving around getting some infrastructure on the ground and some charging. We are working with some multifamily housing units.
The answer is probably no. For sure.
We're not on mute.
So, right, we're talking to some of the people that are running those buildings and those organizations, and helping them with grid alternatives to sort of get some more chargers available to their residences. So it's a work in progress, but there are some irons in the fire. But we're hoping some more money and opportunities will come down the line.
So Shelley still has a question. Can you hear us?
Yes. Oh, actually, did you want to, Chris?
Yeah, I can real quick. I think
Okay.
I just would add to Sierra's notes about local charging, that it's important that we are all squeaky wheels. The food co-op is the food co-op. They have been considering the possibility of charging in their parking lot for more than 5 years. So members of the co-op should be asking the board to start moving on that. So part of this is about getting businesses in the community to start to, when they make plans for resurfacing parking lots, to consider putting in that local charging. The city does have some of the SACOG funding that Sierra was referring to for some major charging additions downtown and other locations around town, but they've had some unexpected delays in the implementation. And most recently, having the majority of the transportation related engineering staff leave the city employment, and so it's the reality of COVID is hitting us all. And then Eugen, I don't know if you have any thoughts on regional charging, but my personal view is that there is a lot continuing to roll out. There's a lot of money being put into charging, and we're going to continue to see a lot of charging resources. And Richard and I were going to do a presentation at our next DEVA meeting about where all the charging is in the community, because there's new stuff in our community that many people are probably not even aware of at this point in time.
Okay.
Shelley.
Can you hear us now?
We can.
Yes.
For Valley Clean Energy, what effect does a homeowner who has solar panels on their house have on dealing with Valley Clean Energy as far as rebates on electric vehicles?
So those solar panels, if you're Valley Clean Energy, it should function, the same as if you're an NEM customer under PG&E. One small benefit is you're getting just a cent more per kilowatt for the energy that you're producing, you're putting on the grid. As far as affecting your rebate amounts, that shouldn't have any effect at all. And we definitely, support that whole home approach where you're sort of being the most efficient with your transportation, your electricity in your home as possible. So, having solar, having electric appliances, having electric transportation is, we definitely see that as a future and so support that. So that's great.
I think the only thing I would add is that there is that there are EV rates that when you match them up with your solar production, that you start to, especially you get a lot of benefit out of all that solar power that you're earning during the day. And you can play with when you charge your vehicle at home in terms of what the price of energy is at the time that you're charging. So for instance, we have solar panels, we have an electric vehicle, we can charge all the way till 3 p.m. during the day with our EV rate as what is it, the super reduced rate for electricity. So it's one of the benefits that the EV gives you is the opportunity to have special rates that work well with your solar system.
One thing I wanted to add in here was it came off of what Susan had brought up too about different home chargers. And I was just wondering, I don't know if Valley Clean Energy has anything on it, but I haven't never seen any sites that kind of compare chargers. I know when I got my home charger, I can't remember, I think I just did an internet search at the time. That was back in 2013. So that might be, especially for people who just are going to buy a new EV. One of the first things they do is how do you compare these different chargers that are out there?
So I think that's really a great addition maybe to the program that we're planning for our next meeting. We could include that home charging devices in that discussion. I just wanted to, we're getting close to the end of the meeting today, and I'm sharing with you some key links for which I would encourage you to grab and use. It's the Cool Davis Drive Electric page, which has links to a number of things, plus the goals we've set for the community. The DEVA page, which has all its past meetings and including slide decks and links to videos, and then directly to the DEVA playlist, which is videos for all of our past Zoom meetings for the last 2 years. So if you ever want to go back, or when this goes out to you, you can share the link with other people if you like. If you've got somebody who really doubts that you can get across the country in your electric vehicle, the story we heard earlier this evening is a great way to share some positive information with people who are still questioning whether EVs are really going to make it in our economy. So
one other thing I'd like to throw out there to the person who was kind of asking about charging infrastructure availability is that there is a lot of work being done by our local, the SAC EV group and Guy Hall in particular, in terms of working on towards changing building codes and design standards for all new residences, especially multi-unit dwellings, to have charging infrastructure in place moving forward. So, in theory, it's not just retrofitting and adding charging infrastructure where there currently isn't. It's getting it, to be in new construction as it moves forward. And I think the further we can go with that and the more success we can have with that, the closer we're going to get to that ideal situation where everyone can charge their electric vehicles when the state hits its targets.
Good.
In-
I think that's
in-
an important point too, is that's, I think one of the major missing pieces is being able to charge if you live in these multifamily dwellings. So I know there was a lot of work last year. I think some of the DEVA people, we participated too in some comments on it, but
Yeah.
and,
The other thing I would say, one last thing before we leave is, think before you buy a home charger, because you may not even need it. If you have an outlet in your garage and you have a portable charger and it charges enough to satisfy your needs, don't even bother spending the money on a charger. You don't need it.
I think I
I would just add to that, that's the way I do it. I just have a 220 plug, and I don't know what they're doing now, but you could send in your 110 cord and have it converted by a company in Berkeley. And I just had my 110 cord converted, and I've never missed having a charger since the whole timing and all the timing works through the computer on the car. So you don't need anything elaborate as far as on the charging side of it, as far as I can tell. Just
So,
wanted to
so
add
you
that in.
plug into a 220 now,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great idea, doing that, taking your 110, 120 line and converting that to a 220 ability. I've heard about that. It's great.
Well,
Yeah.
I think she said she had the charger changed, not the outlet.
Right. She has the charger changed. Yeah. But
I
she
had the
also,
I had the
she had a
charging
220.
cord. I sent my
Yes.
110 charging cord in to be changed out to a 220.
right. Yeah. In fact, I think if you buy the new Bolt, the 2022 Bolt EV and EUV, they actually give you a charger that handles both 110 and 220. Got a separate plug on it. But I checked into that too before I actually put my home charger in, whether I could get my line converted. But I decided to go with the one hanging on the wall.
And then another thing I'd like to throw out there for, people to, if they're looking towards trying to charge at the cheapest times and such, I just had solar installed on my house 2 weeks ago and got a Powerwall battery installed as well. And the great thing about doing a battery, if you can afford it and it's something that works into your lifestyle, is with the battery, whether you have solar or not, you can power shift. You can shift your time of use to where you're charging the battery either by solar or from the grid at the cheaper times, and then use the battery to power your home or charge your car at the more expensive times. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm finding that to be really useful.
Right. I was just going to add, does anybody have any more questions for Sierra? So we can, if you don't, thank you, Sierra. That was a great presentation. And I actually think it went better doing it dynamically on your webpage than if you just had slides of web pages. So good idea to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I went well. So there's nothing worse than looking at a blank slide of something and then trying to find it the next day when you've seen a static presentation. Great. Well, thank you very much for coming.
All right, thank you.
Like I said, the last one on Pikes Peak, that one, Jim Wilson's didn't make it. The Pikes Peak run is in June 26th, Colorado Springs. And Jim said he's going to try and present at the next SAC EV meeting, if he can. But we'll have to talk to SAC EV about that. Any other questions?
We're trying to get him on the agenda.
Okay.
May I say something?
Absolutely, Stuart.
Oh, okay. We have had electric vehicles for 10 years. With the last 2 years, we used Kia Soul EV. Wonderful vehicle. In the last 6 months, we lost 30 or more miles of range. I took it to the dealership and they reconfigured something so that suddenly I had a lot more range, which was not real. I'm wondering if you have dealt with how do you deal with
You know, Stuart,
dealerships
you broke
that
up a little.
don't want to? I'm sorry.
Stuart, you broke up a little bit there. Could you repeat that final part of your question?
I'm sorry. Okay. What do you do to make sure that the battery is executed?
Well, I think what I got what you said is you got a 30-mile increase in your battery range, but you didn't think it was accurate. It wasn't working. Is that right?
The range went from 60 to 100 and some miles ago. It didn't last. And now between our two electric vehicles, it's lost 30 plus miles in the last, say, 6,000 miles of driving. And concern is, how do I deal with the dealership, which the last time charged me $190 to check the battery and refigured everything so that it showed a lot more miles that weren't real. Has anybody dealt with that problem?
Eugen, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, there's a recall on some Kia Soul batteries, so I would check there. And then I wouldn't communicate with the dealer. I would call Kia directly and ask them, first of all, if there's a recall for their car, and just describe your problem. Because that's not, something's wrong there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Well, we've hit our 7:30 and we've gone past. Any last questions or comments, or will we let you go? Okay, I'll take that as a let's go. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Enjoyed the communication as always. I want to thank our speakers too for taking part of their evenings and talking to us. And we'll see you soon. We'll send out some of those surveys we talked about maybe an in-person DEVA meeting and hybrid. And then we'll be talking to the SAC-EV guys for their experience and how it pulls off. Any last words, Chris?
No, I'm just grateful that everybody is still joining us for our Zoom meetings, and we do want to know from you about your preferences as we start to move into thinking about hybrid meetings. You know, what you would prefer to do, and so please answer those surveys when you get them, and we look forward to seeing you in June.
That's great. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.